Breaking news. We are sorry to interrupt the movie Chris Tickletoes Drops Down Your Chimney on the East Coast, and the romantic Hallmark movie Santa Comes for Christmas on the West Coast. We'll get back to them after the news. In only a matter of days, aliens are set to invade the US, ushering in an era of unprecedented destruction as they become our new overlords. At least, that's what some people are saying. Good evening. I'm senior citizen correspondent Joey Lee, and what appears to be the end of the world, again, an early AI model has predicted a December destruction for the world's citizens, and the prophecy is set to play out in only a matter of days. In order to help make sense of all this, we've called in a crack team full of experts and researchers, including our senior conspiracy research correspondent, Gil.
Hello?
Hello, Gil. And our senior guest paranormal correspondent, host of the Paranorm Girl Podcast, Kristen Amanda.
Hi, Joey Lee. Good to be here.
Hey, we're really glad to have you. Thanks for coming on. Well, joining us later, Gil's unhinged, intentionally lost cousin, senior truth correspondent, Gil with two L's. Well, Kristen and Gil, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Now, Gil, I know you've
Yeah.
been diving into this. If you could give us a quick rundown of what the buzz is all about before we bring on your cousin.
Yeah. So as it appears right now, all over the internet, there is a buzz of an upcoming alien invasion. Now, the general story of how this alien invasion is going to play out is it's pretty straightforward. Actually, anybody who's familiar with something of the likes of Project Bluebeam will be pretty familiar with it. What's supposed to happen as of December 3rd or 4th, depending on who you ask, there will be a massive appearance of UFOs in the sky over the United States and over major capitals all over the world. The UFOs will be fighting with military fighter jets that are flown by human beings, as well as fighting with other UFOs. That's the word on the street, and that's supposed to be coming down now in less than 48 hours.
Hmm. Gil, can you just delve into that a little bit more? I feel like I'm having a little bit hard time following where you're going. It's fascinating, but I'm having a hard time following.
Gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, so there was a gentleman by the name of Cliff High. He was a programmer, and judging by his videos, I would definitely say he meets all the earmarks of a classic genius. He's
Mm-hmm.
genius when it comes to semantics, when it comes to coding. He's multi-award winning. He's been recognized for a long time, and now Cliff High, he has an important distinction, right, in history overall, and that is he was one of the early developers in the modern era of large language models. Now, large language models, also known as LLMs, are the basis of current AI technology. Essentially, what you do is you take large chunks of communications, of just regular day to day human communications, you combine them together, and then you can apply a mathematical formula, an algorithm. You know, how many emails ask this question with these sets of words, right? And how many times do the reply emails have these sets of words, right? These averages get worked out. Then there gets to be some sort of coding that takes place where they start to understand intent, or they start to understand tone, or they start to understand education level. All these things which most folks I feel would be pretty familiar with now. If you've ever played with AI, you have the control of. So you type in, write me a professional based email that sounds like it's from a lawyer that's talking to a client,
Mm-hmm.
explaining why they can't sue the seller of raw milk for getting tuberculosis, and a brief article about how in the early 1900s tuberculosis was spread through raw milk via people with TB coughing while they were harvesting the milk, which led to the modern era of pasteurization, right? So, anyways, large language models generally are what's used to train and to build current AI models. Highcliffe, or yeah, Highcliffe, this gentleman in question here, who
Yes.
relates back to how all these UFO stories or this upcoming destruction comes in. He was one of the first people to say, "What if we take all of the information from social media?" Right. So from Twitter back in the days when it was really the Wild West, like before anything that's transitioned into just before Musk got it and after Musk got it, but the early days of Twitter when it really had a large um, pool of communication from folks all over the world. Right. So Twitter took
Mm.
off globally while Facebook was mostly United States and then Europe. Right. Twitter really took off all over the world. So you had a lot of these pools, these data pools of communication all over the world in all different languages and all different cultures. And he sat there and he looked at it. He said, "There's patterns here, and coding is excellent for patterns." Then he started to get on the side of what some might consider the woo, right? So for a long time now, people have thought that there's a general relative consciousness, right? There's a general mass consciousness of there might be an upcoming tsunami or a major natural disaster or some type of terroristic event or some sort of, the fall of the Berlin Wall, some major hallmark in human history might take place soon, and we'll be able to tell that something's going to happen based off the general trends of human consciousness, right? So something somewhere, an egg floating in water, a little ticker that's alone in an isolated room, any number of things, a random number generator, if you will, right? Any number of different devices or schemes have been used over the years, over the decades, to measure mass consciousness, to kind of see if we can see if something big is going to happen. And believe it was Princeton, along with some Harvard studies, correct me if I'm wrong here, were actually doing these things in the 90s and into the 2000s. They were floating eggs. They were doing all sorts of different things where they were like, let's just see if we put these things in a room and we monitor them 24/7. If they start freaking out within hours or within days, predictably, before a major event, a 9/11 style event takes place, or a Fukushima Daiichi style, like nuclear disaster, or Chernobyl style disaster, some major event which the entire world becomes aware of, much like Michael Jackson's release of Thriller. So this study, this attempt to study mass consciousness, it's been an ongoing thing. And what Cliff High did was basically say, well, hold on a second. We have all of these languages and all this communication all over the world. What would happen if we actually just started, going straight to the horse's mouth? If we just started analyzing the words and the comments and the messages from all these social media channels and all these different places, these unfiltered, unbiased stream of conscious mentions all around the world. And we developed some sort of system, some sort of formula in order to understand what was going to come next. Instead of having, say, an egg bob in water or a light turn from red to green before something, what if we could actually hear or have written down what's going to happen? Right? What if we can tap into that consciousness a little bit further? Brilliant concept, brilliant idea, especially for the early, kind of like budding idea of a global or universal like consciousness, right? And like looking at the tools you got and saying, I can do better with it. Well, he did that. He started taking down massive amounts of communication from social media all across the internet. And this is
Hmm.
in the early days. I'm talking about like the early 2000s, like pre 2010, right? So there was zero censorship. There wasn't even, I don't even believe there was the option to ban somebody on social media, like at the time. This is like the very, very early days. Like this is a couple of years after Facebook allowed somebody who wasn't in college to join. Very early days. And he started taking all this communication and he started applying his coding knowledge, right? And again, he's in that early large language model AI development kind of programming mindset with things. And so he's like, all right, so I'm going to train these systems based off this communication. They're going to go through, they're going to analyze everything based off of my rating scores and the formula that I see is how to read these digital tea leaves, right?
Hmm.
We're going to pull all these things in and we're going to get it to spit out a few factors, right? And those factors were things like key events, or as he refers to them, I believe the phrasing he uses is like temporal markers. Temporal markers, sorry. So these temporal markers would be if this, then this, right? So they're not so much based off of a very specific date. It's not like you know, in 2010 on, I don't know, May 13th, da 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 da. This is gonna happen and this is gonna happen. No, 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 no. The whole concept with the mass consciousness is it's a moving forward and it's fluid and it can change, but it can also be predicted based off of tapping into these little moments. He said, so instead of time itself, what if we looked at keynotes of events? Almost like you can take a bunch of ingredients, right? Mix it together in a pot, pour it into a cake tray, and make a beautiful cake. It doesn't matter what time of day you start the cake, right? The chemical reaction needs to take place at a certain time with a certain temperature. Then the cake is ready. And you're going to know the cake is ready when you can stick a toothpick into it, pull it out, and there's nothing sticking to it, right? So those are the temporal markers. One of the predictions he made, which gets back to why a lot of people feel like this might be legitimate and why it's getting blown up, is the fact that he predicted, at least within reason, and honestly, as somebody who's gone into Nostradamus and looked into him and isn't super impressed, to be honest, um, he predicted the rise of Bitcoin years before Bitcoin became a thing. Some of his interviews and some of his videos online document him calling out early cryptocurrency, specifically Bitcoin, before the idea, the real concept of even a Bitcoin wallet came into existence, when it was just raw blockchain and hardcore nerds had to figure out how to keep it and hide it from everybody else out in the world. He was one of those folks that was like, wait a second, the global psychic trend is going towards Bitcoin. So much so that his assistant, whose name escapes me right now, actually went in and bought a bunch of what is it, Ethereum? Ethereum? I think it's Ethereum. Bought a bunch of Ethereum, made massive amounts of money off of it. So like there was an internal like obvious gain. You can check the receipts and check the dates, but like they were gaming the system and they were gaining off of it. Another one that he did, which I feel like everybody, including their mom's mom, tries to take credit for, but we have to give it the time of day, would be 9/11. Now, his original prediction, based off of temporal events, this plus this will equal this within this set period of time, right? So you put the cake in at 8 o'clock, it rises by 9 o'clock, you check it at 10 o'clock, it should be done around 10:30, check it one last time, you're ready to eat at 10:45, right? So it could happen at any time of day, move those up and down a few hours. Well, his prediction, and based off the whole events, which you can watch some uh, very convoluted videos where he breaks it down, because honestly, judging by him, he is a bit of a genius, and sometimes it's difficult to follow him and just all over the place. Well, he said that there would be a major, I believe, militaristic, without the traditional military, attack that would take place in, I think he said July or August of 2001. And he made that prediction in 1999. So he was a couple months off. you know,
Hmm.
not too bad.
Hmm.
Now, all of this leads us up to the alien invasion that is set to take place within the next few days and why the internet is starting to talk about it. Back in 2009, right? Way the hell back in 2009. He predicted, he predicted, based off of this system and temporal markers and everything else, um, something along the lines of Joe Rogan would debate Donald Trump. And 39 days after that debate, aliens or UFOs would be fighting with United States Air Force jets, along with fighting other UFOs openly above the skies. Right. So the term that he actually used around that was there would be an open melee, which is all rules and everything have broken down. It's just an all-out dogfight. Nobody knows what the fuck's going on. Everybody's trying to stay alive, but they're trying to stay in it. And he really emphasizes in his videos melee and the term melee. Well,
Hmm.
a few years later, the the results of his coding systems kind of came down to, or they refined themselves into, they would have an interview. And again, this is like 2011, right? And I really want to point something out here, which is also the kind of mark of credibility that the folks that are into this current prophecy are calling out, which is in 2009, at the time of this prediction, it was only a couple months after Joe Rogan started his podcast. Further, for a relative sense, podcasts weren't known in 2009. Like there, nobody knew what the fuck a podcast was. Right? So you have Joe Rogan, who just basically got off Fear Factor and wasn't really like the Joe Rogan we know now, like not at all, right? And then you have Donald Trump, who like this is before The Apprentice, this is before all that other, like why the fuck would that? And then like why the fuck would the guy from Fear Factor be interviewing Donald Trump, who's this the real estate mogul in New York, which has like a mixed review behind him? And then how the fuck would that tie to aliens?
Hmm.
Right? Fast forward, and Highcliffe gets reminded, oh, yeah, the system totally predicted this because about 37 days ago now, just before the presidential election, Donald Trump was interviewed by Joe Rogan on Joe Rogan's podcast. That's the linchpin. That's the whole breakdown behind all this.
Well, that's very interesting, Gil. We really appreciate you coming on. I actually wish I had that Harvard study to fact check, but we don't have that right now. Um, you spoke about it's the cake, the basic layer of the cake. Can you get right down to that basic layer? Because our listeners and we all here want to know that just the nitty gritty of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Can you please explain?
Yeah, so 39 days after the Joe Rogan interview with Donald Trump, um, UFOs will be fighting UFOs along with United States Air Force jets in the sky. At least that's the word on the street.
Oh.
Uh, may I follow up with that? So,
Hmm.
was Highcliffe the person who brought his prediction of old back up into the public? Was it him who introduced this back into the public and started this entire resurgence as
From what
to
I can
his model?
tell, yeah, so from what I can tell, he was reminded of it because you have to think this was a program that was running constantly. It was producing all these different reports. This wasn't exactly something in 2009 that like stood out in terms of let's put a bookmark on this and try to remember it on the anniversary. This is a constant automated reporting system. And you know, the variables involved in that are absurd when you look at it in a relative sense of Joe Rogan from Fear Factor, who was like, kind of mildly famous, like Donald Trump, who wasn't even that much like a household name at the time, and then UFOs and jets fighting over the country. Like it's like, this might be in the BS pile, right?
Hmm.
So it was somebody, I believe it was his assistant who made all that money. Um, I want to say it was his assistant who kind of basically ringed him up recently and was like, "Hey, do you remember this? Do you remember this report?" And he went back to the records and he's like, "Ah, crap," and like looked into it.
Hmm. And of course,
I do
that's
have a
the Joe Rogan famous from the Joe Rogan podcast, and Donald Trump famous from The Apprentice. Kristen, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I did have a follow-up to that. I'm curious if anyone has documented his actual success rate. You've talked a lot
That,
about his successes. I
yes,
wonder how often he got it wrong.
yeah. Broken clock is right twice a day, right?
True.
It's a really good question. I have not been able to find much
Mm.
of anything around that, let alone the actual proof somewhere on the internet of it being published at that time in 2009. As a matter of fact, it seems like mostly hearsay. It seems like mostly trust. So take it as you
Hmm.
will.
All of this is fascinating, Gil. I
Yep.
really appreciate you coming on. Just one more time, just run over top of the quickly so we can get our listeners on board, and hopefully we can get them quickly to the Santa True Crime Chris Kringler, the Serial Mingler TV show after these breaking news. So just please give us a quick wrap up of this.
We're all going to die in less than 48 hours.
Fascinating.
At least that's
Fascinating.
what some believe.
Hmm. Well, is that basically it?
More or less. I mean, I think that the main point that people should remember from all
Appears Gil is having some technical issues. Oh, his video just disappeared. His audio is gone. Kristen, can you hear him or is he gone?
I've completely lost Gil.
All right. Our producer is telling us we can't get him back. So, up next is going to be our senior truth correspondent, Gil with two L's, right after this break. Shit job on my hair this time. Make it shit too.
Because I'm on the. No, I did it. I said so.
And all right, we are back. We're getting close to back. All right. And I think with live with us today, Kristen, we have our special correspondent for today, Gil with two L's. Gil, how are you doing today?
This thing on? Hello?
Gil, we can hear you. We
We
can
can
hear
hear
you.
Hold
you.
on a second. Hold on a second. Hello?
We can
All
hear you.
right.
Yes, Gil. We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
It's a great shirt there, Gil.
Thank you.
Hmm.
I wear it to fool them.
Okay.
What'd you like to know? I've been studying this shit all week.
I believe Kristen had the first question here for you. I think she was ready and willing to give you the first question tonight. So, Kristen, go ahead.
Yes, I also very much like your shirt, sir. Gil with two L's.
Thank you.
First question, right off the top of my head: are we, from your research, about to die as a race? Are we about to be annihilated?
Thank you, Kristen. One in. Now, that's the best segue you could possibly give me. Now, if y'all ain't at home putting on your hats, you're going to want to start. Here's the deal. So, if you look here, hold on. Now, if you look here, what you got here? You got J. Allen Heineken, right? You got him back in the day. Okay. Now, everybody knows him from Project A Blue Book. Now, I don't want to get into how that sounds like Project Blue Beam, but the similarities are, well, they're courting curiosity. Let me put it that way. Now, so what you got is you got one of his most famous cases back in the day. You got him in Michigan, right, saying it was swamp gas. Now, but stop and think about that for just a half fucking second. Everybody knows it was a swamp gas. Even Gerald Ford, he was coming in. He was like, that ain't no goddamn swamp gas. That ain't no fucking swamp gas. Now, why would he say such a thing? Now, I get it. He was paid still to come in to the UFO department. He was coming in to say things like, that wasn't a cryptid. That wasn't a monster. That was just your mom. Ha ha, funniest mom joke in the world. Everybody knew it wasn't true. Here's why he did it. Think about it. Stop for a fucking second. Sorry, can I cuss on this show? Doesn't matter. Point is, America. Think about it for a second. J.
We are
Allen
live,
Hynek.
but go ahead. Go ahead.
This is being recorded?
We're live. Yes, we're live for an audience. This is breaking news, so you were on. with
Last time I come on here. Last time I come on here.
You
Now,
said that last time,
stop
but
and think about
yes,
it.
go ahead.
Stop and think about it for just a freaking half a second. All right. J. Allen Hynek. Charger on the wall won't reach. Okay. J. Allen Hynek was from Ohio State University. Right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, home of the Buckeyes.
Think about it.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Home of the Buckeyes. He was a professor at Ohio State University. Ohio State University.
Okay.
Now, so Ohio State University's biggest rival, Joey,
Michigan.
Kristen. Exactly. Michigan
Mm-hmm.
University of Michigan. Where did this UFO event take place? Michigan. Now, what's the phrase of the football team? Go blue.
Oh, go blue.
Go blue. Now stop and think about that for a half second. Go blue beam? Question mark.
Very
See where I'm putting down? Do you pick up what I'm putting down? I don't know yet. Now, point of all this is everybody knows. Everybody that's in the knows calls Donald Trump Disclosure Don. Everybody knows that, right? Like everybody says that all over the internet, not just the forums I post on. Now, why did they try to assassinate? Why did they try to assassinate Disclosure Don? Why is he wearing a new ear piercing over here? Because he said too much on Joe Rogan. Now, if you stop and think about it for a second, that assassination attempt, half-assation attempt, if you will, happened before Joe Rogan. But Joe Rogan would only pay attention to Don if he may have gotten assassinated. Look at that smile. It's the smile of a killer. Now, the point is, he went on Joe Rogan and he said he would be disclosure Don. Everybody's like Teflon Don. He's like, fuck that. I'm disclosure Don. I'm sorry. Fridge that. I'm disclosure Don. All right.
Mhm.
Okay. That's about how far I've gotten with it. All I know is that Sergey Monas from Project Bluebeam, he's got a little bit of an ouchie right now. It looks like we're coming down to the final days of truth versus justice. I don't know what the hell
Well,
that means, but I know I'm going to be hiding here for it.
well, Gil, that's all very interesting, and it's an earful, unlike Donald Trump. Can you give me can you talk about the ketchup, the Heinz ketchup bottle that is right above your left shoulder, right below the Joe Rogan picture?
Hang on.
Yes, yes, sir, yes, Gil with two L's.
That I gotta go shopping tomorrow.
Is that all your grocery list as well?
Yeah. Right.
Gil
In
with
the
two L's.
1980s, Reagan said that ketchup was a vegetable. I mean, what more do I need?
Gil with two L's. It sounds like a
Uh-huh.
balanced diet in your life, your line of work. Um, do you have any actual hard proof or evidence?
I don't know what the hell I've been presenting this whole time that you don't understand as hard proof and evidence. You got the Heineck. You got that little French man up there. Oh, Jacques Valet looks like he valets lies right into the parking lot. That's what he valets. And you got Ohio State, you get University of Michigan, and Go Blue, Beam, right? You got Trump, still got the Band-Aid on. Ouch. And you got Rogan. I don't know what else you need.
Gil with two L's. Just
Yeah,
briefly. I
please.
assume you are currently in your bunker for your safety, correct? Are
It's
you?
a modest, it's a modest single-story ranch style home. Um,
I see. I
but
see.
sure for the
I
audience.
worst case
Mhm.
scenario, if this High
Mhm.
Cliff's prophecy does come to pass, are you, aside from the catch up, are you prepared to wait this one out?
I mean, I got all my liquids and vegetables right there. I'm ready for it.
But you just did say you haven't been to the grocery store yet. So are you actually in
Well,
fact
that's
ready?
tomorrow.
And
This is
what
happening the day after.
True. And what would you propose would be best for families, for kids, for children, for the America, for the United States of America and the people to do? What would you have them do about this?
If you add it to this
If you would,
very
yes.
liberal media's show notes, and I'm gonna have
Mhm.
to call you out on that. I've seen some of the things you guys have done before. I know this is your first episode, but I've got some concerns. Now, I have a great family guide written, in fact, by this group called Heaven's Gate. All right. Now they will tell you how to prepare exactly for everything that you need to do. Okay. You don't have to worry about it. Actually, they have this whole medicine.
Oh, I guess we
Whew.
lost him or he forgot to pay his internet bill. It could be either one. Kristen, what are your thoughts on this wild, what could I say, theory?
Well, to be hopeful and idealistic, I sure do hope if this trend in success rate for the original model holds true and there is something about to occur in 3 4 days time, I hope everyone is just as prepared as Mr. Gill there with two L's. But
Thank you.
Okay.
let's
Hey
keep
guys.
our fingers crossed that that just does not have to occur.
Yes. As the moment, thank you for coming in for this breaking news moment and segment. We really appreciate it. Um, you let's get into our actual talk for today, our opens forum, our open session. So we're gonna get
Yeah.
nice and relaxed. I'm gonna take the tie off. It's gonna get
Ooh.
real informal in here. And actually, Santa Comes for Christmas is postponed until next week. So you'll be with Black Cat Report coming for Christmas. Let's go. Hey Gil, also your Riverside is open in another tab, so you got to close that before you.
I got it.
Cool, thank you.
It's all good now.
Mhm.
Yeah. So this is the part of this very chaotic first dry run of a concept of a show, where we're kind of like busting out of the satire and we're just kind of like actually talking for ourselves. We're not in character. Joey's taken off his suit and tie, or at least
Taken off
the
the
the the
just the suit.
dressy
I've already taken
part.
off
Now
the
he's just
tie.
looking fancy. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, all the characters and the morbid jokes done. If anybody wants to, if anybody's like watching the show right now and they want to ask questions in the chat about this current conspiracy nice this current
Get comfy.
conspiracy that's kind of like running rampant around the internet, totally down to have a non-satirical conversation. Kristen's gonna get a Christmas hat. Hold on, I can't let her be the first one back. Hold on.
All right. Well, I'll keep you all for 1 second. As we move into December, we're all getting
Yeah,
Christmassy,
baby.
as you can see. So, yeah, again, like Gil was just saying, we really want to try.
Ah!
Oh, Kristen, we're all getting Christmassy. We're
We're
really
still keeping
trying
it
to
goofy.
do some
I'm
fun
ready now.
stuff, and Kristen is always going to be asked along if she would like to when we do these crazy things. So,
It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure, boys. Been a pleasure.
mhm.
Thank you for riding with us. But yeah, this was just I dug into the concept yesterday. We've like always wanted to do a like breaking news like kind of like thing with Black Cat Report. And I dug into it, and we did a 1 year anniversary special based off of apocalypse and doomsday things. If you ever want to hear our very intense bias around those things, which is spoiler, they've all been wrong. So we come in very skeptical about it. And another spoiler, if we're wrong about being wrong, it doesn't matter because we're all fucking dead. So we're really not worried about getting called out on that one. Just saying, there's 100% fail rate on all of them. So we're always going to come in and kind of shit talk it a little bit. And I spent about 5-6 hours of my life yesterday digging into High Cliff, digging into kind of some of the pump up videos, everybody kind of freaking out about it. And this is something that's spreading on TikTok, it's spreading on Twitter, it's spreading all over social media, and it's picking up. Um, and it was just like, wow, the actual roots behind this are actually interesting. They're very fascinating. But
Yeah.
the issue is, at the end of the day, it's coming in too fast, right? A lot of times, these end of the world predictions are like 4,000 years from now, or when the
Mhm.
moon sees the sun, or some crazy ass shit, right? Um, and like it's coming in so fast, it's hard to actually find the fucking receipts,
Yep.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
really hard to be like, how the fuck do you research that quick, right?
Mhm.
Um, so it's coming in really fast like that, but it's fucking fascinating
It is. It
for
is.
one very specific reason though. But like beyond, and I want to hear your point too, Kristen, in a second, but this is the thing. We have it in the title that it's Christ GPT, right, as kind of a snarky remark, because here's the thing, this might be the first pop culture reference of an AI doomsday prophecy.
Mm.
So in 100 years, 200 years, and 1,000 years, when AI takes
Mhm.
off and we reach general intelligence, general artificial intelligence, and AI is sentient, right? By all accounts and measures, right? When it looks back on its prophecy, on its holy texts, on its early origins, I'm not saying this event will be a footnote, but I am saying this is the canary in the coal mine of that
Mm.
early AI models have already started creating these predictions. And at some point, AI is going to look back at its own history and become sentient, which if we don't nuke ourselves beforehand, it will. It's going to look back at its own history and it's going to look at its own old texts and try to dig through it.
Hmm.
So when I say Christ GPT, somewhat snarky, but also kind of somewhat serious too. And that's why I find this specific instance so fascinating. It's kind of the first moment where there's a transition between us humans, the development of general intelligence with artificial intelligence, and we are walking around in the times of Matthew and John and da 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 da. Like that's what's happening right now in the emails that the NSA is going through and reading and scraping and is getting sucked up into large language models. But yeah, if there's any questions, if there's any thoughts, anything, I know Kristen, I know you had something to
No,
say there for a
no,
second,
yeah, it was
but yeah,
something else you answered, but that does lead me to ask, like, can this technically be called like the very like Stone Age of an AI prediction? The a man programmed a model, a computer,
yeah,
to read data, and
hmm
based on that data, those markers, then the program can compute like what is the inevitable outcome, like what differentiates, I guess, is there a differentiation between something like that, which anybody can program a computer to compute the data,
hmm
versus AI, although somebody had to originally program the AI. So
he
I just
So
Cliff High.
quandrade myself.
the idea that we talked about with the doctor on one of our old episodes, I cannot
Mm-hmm.
remember what episode it was, but the
100,
100.
the
wasn't it? Yeah.
100, yeah,
Dr.
and
Mila Bowie.
101. And
Yeah.
we talked about that it's GI and not AI because it's just generalized intelligence at the moment, and that
Mm.
right now it's not thinking for itself. It's not getting. I mean, and who knows in the future? So I kind of asked her, and I put it up to maybe a vote in the comments too. Of what do you think? What movie do you think we're gonna go down? Do you think we're gonna go Terminator style? You think they're going to be sending robots back to the past to kill the one person who nobody cares about? Um, or is it going to be like iRobot, where, we eventually coexist with the robots and then they start trying to kill us? And I mean, every movie ends with us being almost killed. Or, you know, Avengers, I guess they all kind of end with a similar thing, but like what movie in the comments, if you want to answer to, do you think we're going to end up with as closest to our future? And I want you guys to tell me too, where do you think we're going?
Yeah. Are we going like
You
Blade Runner, Children of Men,
Mm-hmm.
um, Neon Evangelion? I totally butchered that name, but I haven't watched that anime in a long time, but it's fucking dope and I need to rewatch it. It's a Christmas anime. Um, you know, what 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 apocalypse do y'all see coming? Um,
Mm-hmm. Do you also
kind of with
think AI is predicting its own extinction? Like it's
it's
right, like
watching human politics like I'm fucked.
I'm
yeah,
out of
yeah,
here.
right, yeah, like it's like no, thank you.
Yeah. Well, so
I've
there is a couple things too with Cliff High that I did find fascinating and I did find legitimate. And I'm gonna come into first with my own bias. He hold on one second. Boy.
His own by
See.
ass, which is sitting right there. So
So we got boom.
had to.
We
He
got
made it too easy there
boom.
by standing up
and then just
There we go.
standing in front of the
and
And we got
humming.
camera.
boom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And all right, I'm not gonna grab all of them down. Anyways, he he started quoting and started bringing up one of my favorite philosophers, Jean Baudrillard, right? And I work in data for a living, right? I work in analytics and understanding, um, you know, human relations between like why they take actions on things, the phrasing and the language that they use. And when you take that to a very high level of like abstraction, once you kind of get past the basic of people do this because it's nice, kind of a thing, and you start actually breaking things down into like a I want to see this for the fucking matrix that's behind it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
how is value established and how does it relate to control and power dynamics and the mechanisms of the development of society? Like you get real fucking like trippy with it.
Mm-hmm.
Jean Baudrillard is the shit for that, specifically simulacra and simulation. If you really want to have just a doctor's given prescription for headache medicine, it's a great book. But it is fucking fascinating, and it will help you kind of like pull things into a universal abstraction, and then learn to recognize those moments when they come into much simpler terms. All this is to say, for me, there was a mark of legitimacy. Like these were some of my favorite books when it comes to like philosophy when I was like 21, 22 years old. I'm 34 years old now, so it's been over 10 years, 12 years, right? Um, Multiple interviews, I heard him start quoting Baudrillard and then like literally say
Mm.
Baudrillard. He's the only other fucking person in the world that I know that's actually referenced Baudrillard.
Mhm.
And I've read these very abstract books and I understand what the fuck he was doing based off of it. And I was like, oh, you've got chops. Like you've actually got chops, right? So a lot of Baudrillard comes in from an angle of consumerist mentality, specifically he's kind of like a neo-Marxist, but it kind of has to do with our relation with capitalism. This is all very abstract, but the biggest driver in the world for understanding human communication and the decisions we make is, can we make money from it? Right? That's
Mhm.
the current biggest driver in the world. Not
Easy.
is it good, is it bad? Can we make money?
Mhm.
Right? And
Mhm.
Baudrillard was coming from the point of view of this is how we're being manipulated, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
um, and this guy went in, dug into it, and then applied it to code and scanned the internet. So I think there is a very fascinating potential, Kristen, to kind of go back to something you were asking about a little bit ago. There's a very fascinating potential that his technology, when given the proper environment to bloom in,
Mhm.
could do a lot in terms of accurate prediction. Can it predict an alien invasion? I don't fucking think so. Because there's a
Bold.
difference between humans
Bold.
talking about humans and this
Mhm.
micro recognition of growing trends, kind of like shifts in atmospheric pressure and temperature, and like the jet streams moving, and in 2 weeks there's going to be a snowstorm in this random ass town in Iowa or something like that. Like those are trends, but they're all kind of like set within themselves, and they're in an understood ecosystem and an understood ecology. Whereas literal extraterrestrials that humans can't comprehend. I mean, humans have a hard enough time trying to comprehend like their own partner. Yeah, let
Mhm.
alone the motivations of extraterrestrials,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
If you're monitoring the entire globe, so to go back to like the 9/11, like calling that out, or even like Bitcoin or things like that, if you're measuring this is how much this is growing, this is the intensity, these are the phrasings, this is this, that can all be analytically understood, but it's all within the sphere of human relations and it could
Mhm.
be predicted. Even in the sense that Twitter, which was a very, very, very intense free speech, no censorship, literally no banning, nothing zone at the time, he was reading Farsi. He was reading like all of these, somewhat small dialects coming out of the Middle East and across the Middle East in different regions, including a number of folks from Saudi Arabia who were training to be pilots in Florida at the
Hmm.
time. So
Mhm.
like the chatter, the scuttlebutt, if you will, right? The digital scuttlebutt, if you will. That makes fucking sense that you could predict it. And I'm pretty sure that the NSA is probably way,
They built
20,
something
30,
just like
40
that.
years ahead of
Yeah.
that, right? They probably have some fucking reason why they're like Heinz tomato ketchup. And it's like, why is that being promoted? But it's fucking with everybody's mind in a certain direction. I'm sure we're in like a brave new world of manipulation at this point. But
I
Mhm.
would agree with you, Gil. I
yeah.
don't think it can foresee something like that, and it could not. But what I find very impressive, though, is
Mhm.
that back in, when did you say it originally read this prediction?
2009.
2009. Back in 2009, I mean, that's
Yeah.
still a long time ago
It's impressive.
comparatively, that it saw the trends of us
Yeah.
humans and our human relations talking about alien life and extraterrestrials and UFOs. It saw the trends forming at that. And at that stage, it was such a baby.
Yeah.
stage for the subject. Nowadays, I mean, everybody's talking about it. And we just had our
Yeah.
third hearing, like
Yeah.
governmental hearing on the subject. But at
Mhm.
that point, it saw the minuscule in comparison
Mm.
trends of us talking about aliens, and could read the trends enough to know that the concept of an alien invasion, of aliens attacking humanity, at this point, whatever the point was, 30, 35, 39 days after Trump
Yeah.
talked to Rogan, that it would be it would be in within our realm of reality that we would actually consider it as a
Yeah.
possibility. I find that very impressive.
And
So
Mhm.
in a way, it did see the future just
it
through
it
data.
does.
Yeah.
And I do. It's interesting. Like I
Hmm.
will not deny it's interesting. It's interesting enough that we came up with an entirely new format and wanted to fuck around with some creative shit and bring one of our best fucking friends, Kristen from Paranorm Girl Podcast, onto the show and just
Mhm.
kind of like, we've got 4 hours. Let's make a fucking show. Let's go live, you know, and like fucking do it. It is fascinating. It's
Hmm.
super fucking fascinating. And,
Totally, totally
we would
fascinating.
have dedicated a shit ton more time to this if the end of the world prediction wasn't in less than 48 hours, right? The relevancy of who the fuck is searching for it kind of is going to drop within a few hours, right?
Well, to be fair,
Um,
Gil, we
yeah.
don't know it's not going to happen. We still have 2 days to
I
find this
feel
out.
100% confident that it's irrelevant if I say it's not going to happen.
I'm just gonna wait and
Yeah, I
see.
ain't
I'm
prepared.
not going to
That's the kind
fucking
of
be
person I
here,
am.
dude.
I'm not prepared anyways.
I'm going to be
Gil with
fighting on
two
the
L's, because
side
he's the
of the
only one.
aliens. All right. Like,
Okay.
I'm gonna
I've
be
seen what the fuck happens on this planet.
waiting
You're
around with my
that bad doctor in
suitcases.
Independence Day that everybody hates.
Yes. No. So I do want to give Cliff High some I watched videos from him. So I couldn't validate everything. I couldn't dig. I didn't have enough time in my, actual fucking life outside of podcasting and everything to dig in like I love to dig into shit because I was like, all right, you got like a 3-day notice, go, you know. Um but I did find videos of him 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Things like that. Like I started like kind of like digging back into YouTube and I'm like, where's the references? What's going to happen?
Mhm.
He spoke of things, and he's a nerd about semantics. I mean, this Bulgerard, and if he sees this, which there's a slight chance he will, um, please go read my favorite fucking philosopher, which I have a feeling you already have, which is Franco Bifo Berardi. Um, yeah, I don't know if you were quoting him intentionally or not, but you're pretty damn close to thought in a few of your interviews. But the point is that these philosophers as a whole, they study a field called semiotics, which, if you want to break that down and extract it, is the term, or this is where the term semantics comes from, right? So, like, oh, you're just doing semantics. You're like, I meant this. You knew what I meant. That kind of da 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 da. But it's that kind of like real nitpicky. I'm gonna hone in on the words, understand the actual subcultural like symbology and the meaning behind it and the power dynamics and what that expresses in the individual and the words and such that they use. It's a very fascinating field, especially if you get into what's the word I'm looking for, like in a very simple level, like folklore and like things like that. Like, how do you understand the relativity of a culture? And understanding semantics is actually very fucking important for that. Like, does a lion mean the same in North Africa as it does in Central Africa as it does in South Africa? When somebody says as strong as a lion, what the fuck does that mean? Right? Because
Mhm.
culturally that could change quite a bit, right? Um, anywho, he said in a number of interviews, um, going back well over 5, 6, 7, 8 years, he broke things down specifically, and I don't want to misrepresent him too much on this episode, but he broke things down in terms of these almost like 15-year periods, right? So he said this temporal note, which would be Joe Rogan interviewing Donald Trump or debating, or however it changed over time, interviewing Donald Trump. This 39 days later, whenever the fuck that happens in history, Great, fine. 39 days after the point of which that happens, this new era is going to take place.
Mhm.
It's going to start. And he spoke about things in terms of we're going to enter around 39 days later, right? Or within a few days after that. See the 9/11 example of being a couple months late or early,
Hmm.
he spoke about it in terms of we're going to enter in this great sci-fi era where we're going to have to come to terms with this insane, incredible advancements in technology, like rapid, like you need to understand what the fuck's going on or you're going to fall behind real fucking fast. Like really, really fast if you don't get involved. That is incredibly impressive for an interview that took place 5 years ago
Mm.
before AI existed. Now,
Hmm.
he did have insider information. He did help code early AI, so he did kind
Yeah.
of know where shit was going in a certain sense. But still, that's impressive. Now, at that point where that first kind of like, that first click would happen, right? In terms of us going up another gear. You'd have 15 years of us kind of coming to terms with this very, very rapid takeoff. Think early internet, like the internet fucking takes off and it's just like
Hmm.
nothing exists in the world that's not connected to Wi-Fi at this point, right? So we have that. And then 15 years after that, and he calls this out specifically, which this is something that he's I if you're looking at him as just somebody who makes predictions, you gotta admit it, he's going out there. He says humans are going to have to come to terms with another extraterrestrial
Mhm.
intelligence. The next 15 years after we kind of get used to AI and this advancement in technology and everything, we're going to have to come to terms with not being alone in the universe. And it's going to be real big. It's going to be real hard
Hmm.
for us. But that's what the next 15 years will be looking like. That's his prediction. So everybody's saying it's going to
Wow.
be aliens and they're going to be fighting in the sky and specifically in the term like melee and this and that and the other. It might happen on the third. It might happen within a few months of the third, yada, yada, yada. But from what I could get from his very intelligent word salad around his shit from an updated video that he made about a month ago on his account, he was mostly saying, no, we're gonna be there might be some shit that happens with aliens, but we're mostly gonna be focused on how the fuck do we deal with Skynet and the birth of AI. You
Oh, wow.
know?
Okay.
Then after
Hmm.
that, and he didn't say Skynet, but we're gonna have
Yeah.
to deal with some really big fucking hurdles in terms of oh shit, technology's leaped. It's like the
Hmm.
atomic bomb just got announced. It's like, ah shit, this is reality now. Then we're gonna be like, ah shit, we're alone in the universe. Or we're not alone in the universe. Like,
Mhm.
I already believe. But yeah, so throw the
Do you?
questions. Throw the questions my way, y'all. Is
Yeah.
anybody in
Go
the
ahead,
chat?
Kristen.
What is it? We
Yeah,
got
there's people in
polls
the
going
chat.
on here.
Yeah, I got a poll for us.
Hell yeah.
So one of my things about this too is in our episode 100, I keep referencing it because it was great about AI. It taught me a lot. Um, there is bias in whatever form of AI that is out
Yeah.
there, or GI as we call it, generalized intelligence. So when you built this platform to scrape all the data together and put out this stuff, there is probably inherently stuff that wasn't looked at. There's probably inherently stuff that he could not scrape together.
Yeah.
And if this person is also a believer in UFOs, believer in that AI is going to take over, that's
Mhm.
also another bias towards the way that this prediction is coming out. So again, to me, I take it as it's just a grain of salt. It's another prediction that's out there again. Trump, in some way or another, in 2009 was probably going to be on Joe Rogan. That's not a hard prediction to figure out. I feel like that's going to happen. That was normal. That was going to happen. You don't believe that? In 2009?
When
In
Joe Rogan had his show for like, what'd you say, like a month, Gil?
It was
Like
like a
it
month or
wasn't
two that
very
Joe Rogan
old.
had his. Joey, please look this up. Please double, quadruple check, please. Joe Rogan was not a.
December 24th, 2009.
Yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah.
random
Mm-hmm.
connection
Oh,
prediction
that
there
was.
at that
How
time.
many people listened to podcasts back then besides people who started calling themselves podcasters? There was like
Mm-hmm.
12. Like it was a very. But I also want to say, the same way that human history, like our human tradition, is kind of like showed up, where it's like, oh, red sky at night, sailor's delight. Red sky in the morning, sailor's warning. Like humans have always learned how to pick up on early signs
Mm,
of
Mm-hmm.
trends and directions with things, right? So
yeah.
red sky at night, sailor's delight means it's going to be a nice day tomorrow. Red sky in the morning, sailor's warning means that there's going to be a storm. That's a long-standing thing. So if you ever see that shit, literally like 8 or 9 times out of 10, it's accurate, right? Now, if you
Mm-hmm.
add in the superpowers of massive amounts of data, right, and upticks in communications and growing in trends and analytics and all this shit that a lot of companies make a lot of money off of you from with all those free accounts we got, right?
Mm-hmm.
That it works. I'm going to tell you from being on the dark side, it fucking works. Like, so it's not surprising that, the old adage, I can forget his name, but the old saying, which is that leaps in technological advancement are indistinguishable from magic,
Mhm.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we
Yeah.
literally,
Yeah.
if we see a major leap in technology, it's indistinguishable from like, oh, ho, it's psychic,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
in 20 years, it's gonna be like, duh.
Yeah.
Fucking duh. Like, you don't have radar in your town? What the fuck, dude? Like, what does your weather channel show? Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
like, could be Jay Birchback on there just being like, yep, it's gonna snow tomorrow. And it's like, did he know? But at a point in
He's a
time, that was
witch.
true. People
He's
were
a
like,
witch.
holy shit, he predicted
Mhm.
it. It was insane.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, I like to feel comfortable enough in realizing I'll know more in a few weeks or in a few years, and I'll be comfortable with knowing more in a few weeks or a few years than I do right now. I'm
Sure.
going to take for granted shit in a few months that right now would be mind blowing to everybody that I know. Like, I'm going to do that. Like, I've already, I'm 34 years old. I've already gone through like, big ass fucking televisions and like getting AOL discs in the mail to like get on dial
Mm-hmm.
up. And why the fuck is my sister calling her crush? She just kicked me offline. Like, we've
Mm-hmm.
already gone through this shit. Like, we've seen these major jumps that have taken place where it's just
Yeah.
instant, 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 and like everything fucking changes.
Yep.
10 years, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Exactly. Phone.
And so,
Mhm.
like, right now, I'm with you in terms of it is an impressive, in my mind, it's not psychic, but it is an impressive technology.
Mhm.
But like any new thing, it's very limited. And early on, there's a lot of hype,
Mm-hmm.
you know? I don't know.
It's gonna
Yeah.
let us down.
Sorry for the
Now,
rambles.
no, I will say one thing. So, is it Cliff High or High Cliff? What's his name?
It's probably High Cliff. I'm
High
probably been
Cliff.
mixing it up all night.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, sorry to
No,
butcher
no,
that
no.
the whole
Thank
He
you.
show.
good.
Thank you for
Um,
correcting me. I've only
so
had like 12 hours to look into them, y'all. So,
so you
sorry.
just he's made further predictions beyond this just one, like this is not like a Mayan calendar, like this is the last day. Like he's made further
Mm,
predictions.
Cliff High.
And
It's
yeah,
Cliff High.
Cliff High,
Cliff High.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't sound like fun years, but it's like, yeah, you're gonna struggle with like coexisting, knowing that you're not alone in the universe, like that, like
Yeah.
that was part of his predictive models.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a hopeful sign. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Even if this all comes to fruition and the aliens attack and the Air Force is like, no, psh, and they're like, no, psh, I think it's all going to be fine.
Yeah.
because
I mean,
because there's further predictions.
exactly. Yeah. It means there'll be a moment where we have to get over it, which means
Yes,
we'll be there to get over it. So,
yes.
like, yeah, I like that. I
Merry
like that,
Christmas,
girl.
everyone.
God damn.
If you're
Damn.
one of
Y'all
those
chill the fuck
people,
out. Kristen's coming
yeah.
here. She's dropping a, a,
Hmm.
a package through your
Just
there. It's like some kind of shamanic Santa Claus just
call me
dropping fly agaric mushrooms right in your chimney so you
call
can
me
just take those and get high going straight into the apocalypse.
call me
And the
Chris
apocalypse only
Twinkle
means
Toes.
revealing. Chris
Chris
Twinkle Toes.
Twinkle Toes. Yep.
I fucking love it. No, that's a
Coming down your
fantastic,
chimney.
fantastic point.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Well, you have to think of it too. It's like, I mean, you just hope that you're one of the if you're this person, because some people just don't want to survive in those worlds. But you just hope that if you want to, that you're the person that survives, and you're not in the high one of the towers that gets knocked down, or one of the houses that gets blown up. Like,
That's true.
there is a fine line
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
between who the people are that are going to be in the devastation, and who the people are that we I mean, me and Gil understand that
Yeah.
specifically right now. There's
Yeah,
like a
I was literally thinking, I was like, or like you live in the middle of the mountains and get hit by a fucking hurricane that nobody's.
yeah,
I was like, we're
Mhm.
there's
fucked, Joey.
there's a fine line.
Yeah.
There's a high cliff in there of what of what happens. So it's like, yeah, there's going to be things like that always. I mean, you guys said, World War II was one of those huge turning points. And if you had asked people before about an atomic bomb, they would have been like, "Boy,
Yeah.
you're crazy. You're witchcraft."
Mhm.
Probably wouldn't have said witchcraft. They would have been shocked though. So we will just be looking forward, or maybe in like 6 years, we'll be looking back and be like, "Man, oh well, just another
Yeah.
thing."
Well,
And
that
just kind of
happened.
how it
Yeah.
goes with everybody.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was nuts.
yeah.
That's been, I feel like for all three of us here, that's been like a hallmark of our generation, like upbringing is just kind of like, well, that was fucked up. Just
Mhm.
and all of our parents and grandparents just being like, I've never seen such a thing. And you're like, really? That was just a Tuesday, September 11th. But
Can it
that's
can it
kind of
can
Yeah.
that
true
part
though.
can that part be the idea
Mm,
that when our grandparents and our parents were growing up and young, there wasn't this
mm,
view to the world for the most part. Like, especially our grandparents.
yeah.
There wasn't a view to the whole world. There was a very small section of your life that you lived, and you had
Mhm.
this very small part of your life that you kept. Everything that's like way out there, oblivious, mostly in another country. For I mean, Cold War, a little different, but
Yeah.
right now our access is literally probably to the second of something happening on the other side of the world, maybe like
Mm.
7 seconds behind,
Yeah. Yeah.
but can
Yeah.
be access to the other side of it. So our tolerance for things happening on a massive scale, or a bad scale, or any kind of scale,
Right.
is much higher. We have a huge tolerance for this because, again, like you just said, nah, it was just another Tuesday, and we're just like,
Mm-hmm.
that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's been a very quick evolution, and it feels
Mm-hmm.
like at this point, like, what is that? Okay, so like, yeah, things have happened like monumentally faster, exponentially faster and faster and faster, and bigger things and just more traumatic things, and yes, our tolerance for it has definitely grown. But imagine if something like an alien invasion were to take
That's
place in three
that's a big
days,
one.
wouldn't we be the ones to kind of be like, yeah, of course. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
We've
Be able
watched
to
enough
I would
handle
movies.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
be
we've
like,
watched enough movies to be like, let's start let's we prep for this, hopefully.
Mhm.
I was believing in him before it was cool. So like, I'm just
Hmm.
saying,
You little trendsetter, you. My
you know
Hmm.
what I'm
goodness.
saying?
Mhm.
Joey, you should check out the book, Future Ability: The Age of Impotence and the Horizon of Possibility by Franco Bifo Berardi, which talks about the increasing concept and stressors and anxieties of the rapidity of time
Hmm.
and like our and social media in particular, along with this book Breathe, which is fucking dope. Um, but yeah,
And
this all kind of like hits within that wheelhouse, which was like a weird way where it's like it went back to like some of my like most personally some of my most formulaic um philosophical like foundations and like philosophers that I like really loved and really influenced me in my late teens and like early 20s. um and this guy kind of like hit on it. It was like a weird blast from a past to like now with like UFOs and shit. And I was like, what the fuck? How did this happen? Like these are two completely unrelated fields that just connected here. Um, but
well,
Cabo's Christian, I think you're 100% right. I mean, if I feel like our whole generation has like taken on like our shoulders are so heavy that most shit just falls off. You know, it's kind of if you're carrying too many bags and you can't put another strap of a bag on with weight because it just slides off the other straps. That's kind of
Yeah.
where we're at with major global events. We're just kind of like, whatever, you know.
we're doing
It's just like
trauma steroids.
you're like, I'll remember it fell on the ground, but I'm still walking, man.
Yeah.
Hmm.
You
it's
know?
it's a much needed like kind of apathy at some
Yeah,
Mhm.
points. Just have to keep moving forward. Meh,
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Trauma steroids. That's what we're doing right now.
I'm on
Little
steroids.
tren
Okay.
Yeah.
right into our veins.
Yeah.
Trauma tren.
Yep.
But this is
Before,
the point where we're getting to the end of our talk.
yes.
I
So
do want to say the
before,
poll.
before, no,
Go ahead, go. Interrupt me. Interrupt me.
Cabos,
Yeah.
Kristen and Amanda,
Yeah.
host of the Paranorm Girl Podcast. Would you please give us a few closing remarks? Would you please give
Mhm.
some pluggables about yourself? What is the awesome fucking upcoming interview that's going to be released soon? I have an insider scoop, not to brag or anything.
Okay.
Like what are some teasers to kind of get folks over to your channel? We will be including link to your show in the show notes. Nobody fucking goes there and clicks that, but we will
I
be
know
doing it.
they never do,
You
but I appreciate it.
Kristen's logo. It's gonna be black. It's gonna have green lettering mostly on it, right? When you see it, and it's like
Mhm.
tiny, tiny on like social media. Paranorm, not paranormal. Paranorm Girl Podcast. She's one of our best fucking friends. She's an incredible human being. She does incredible fucking deep dives into subjects and into different topics every single season with her show, which is fucking fantastic. She also, I don't know how the fuck she does this. I want to take a class from her. I'm going to encourage her to make a class so I could take the class. She's so fucking good at getting incredible interviews constantly across whatever field of whatever subject she's focusing on. Kristen, I haven't bragged you up enough, but I'm running out of words and running out of breath. Could you please give folks an idea of where they can find you?
Mhm.
Sure, sure. And you know what? It is all just luck. I couldn't teach a class. It's just I'm a lucky bitch. I'm sorry. I don't
A
know what else to say.
lucky
I
bitch.
am.
Like,
Yes, they can find me Paranorm Girl on all podcast platforms, most of them anyway. I'm still finding some I need to add to, apparently. I am
Quadrillion.
also on YouTube at Paranorm Girl Pod on social. And yeah, yeah, I'll give you a little teaser. I got an
please.
upcoming guest. I had the amazing Fortean goat, aside from Charles Fort himself, Lon Strickler recently. So he will be
Damn,
airing this Tuesday, and I am so excited for the feedback on that. I was
dude.
beyond thrilled, beyond happy. I couldn't believe it. Thank my lucky stars.
You're one of those folks who you get really awesome, like really well connected interviews with people that are, and I mean this with a compliment, okay, please. Just
Okay.
ahead of time, just a preemptive. You get folks that in terms of the number of subscribers and followers are quote unquote out of your league. Right? Like you get folks that are like way the fuck high up there.
Hmm.
And you are so good at getting in and finding like the real deep, deep, deep folks in whatever field or whatever topic or subject or wherever you're kind of focusing at the time. You get the real motherfuckers. Like the people who teach the people who have PhDs in topics. Those are the folks that you find
Mhm.
and you get in and you do interviews. And something that I love about your interview style is and you do this with the season, it's like a mini version of what you do with your season as a whole, is you take it from I don't know a fucking thing
Hmm.
to I'm challenging you as an expert, and you
Oh.
like walk through that whole fucking path. You do that as a whole season, but you also do that in your interviews. And y'all don't fucking sleep on Paranorm Girl Podcast, is what I'm trying to say. If you've made it this
Mhm.
far into the goddamn show, you're into the paranormal, you're into UFOs, you're into all that jazz. Kristen, there's a reason why we're constantly like bragging her up, and it's 'cause she's really fucking good, and y'all are sleeping on her, man. Like go give her some
Oh,
follows at
thank
Paranorm Girl Pod.
you.
All the
Thank
channels, all the
you.
Yeah.
places.
Appreciate
Yeah.
that, buddies.
Of
Thank you.
course.
She
Of
is the
course.
best. Yeah, and so just to round out our show, thank you, Kristen. You're the best. We always appreciate you coming on with us, and honestly, you make some things of what we're doing just the easiest thing ever. Like I doubt we could have done this whole thing without you. So
You guys,
I would have
you
just
guys are
been
gonna
on
do
here.
great. I hope this continues.
Yep, me too. We'll see how it goes. Honestly,
See what
the
the feedback
feedback,
is first.
yeah, the
The
feedback
debrief is
for
going
the
to be
poll,
interesting.
yeah, the feedback for the poll is that 75% of people said they do not believe that the world is going to end. The prediction is not
Okay.
correct.
All right.
Okay.
We
So
got some
cool.
logical folks in the chat. I
Yeah,
dig
one
it.
person
Okay.
did say yes. So
That's
uh,
okay. That's okay.
yep,
We're all
It was
gonna
me.
find out in a couple of. It was it you, Gil?
couple of days. So we just want to say, me and Gil, for Black Cat Report, are starting to funnel people over to Patreon. So if you guys are indeed looking for us, you can find our free tier on Patreon. It gives you all the updates that we have out there. We will be updating the tiers again, so that will hopefully be done. I can't name a name because I don't want to say one on air and just, well, I guess next week is when we're trying to have the tiers done, um,
Yeah.
and updated
In
for you.
2
We'll have
days.
a video for it as well. But yes, we will be updating everything on it, and there'll be some really, really, really cool stuff that me and Gil are doing.
Yeah.
And I hate to be those people that are like, just wait and see the cool stuff because it's so annoying. But there is going to be a whole nother thing, whole nother two to
Yeah.
3 to 4 things that you guys are gonna be like, I want that, I want to see that. And
Getting weird with
yeah,
it.
we're excited to do
Yeah.
that. But Gil, if you want to, oh wait, I can do it. Remember?
I think this music was supposed to be playing for the.
Can we dance
It's
to it?
It's
fine.
all
Dance
good.
off
I have
to
it
it?
labeled
Yes.
outro. Yeah, please. That's the fucking point. I picked a funky groove on purpose. I was like, oh,
3,
no, no. We're
2.
keeping it.
Do you pick the good funky grooves?
Yeah. So, thank you all for listening to the Black Cat Report with our special guest, Kristen from Paranorm Girl Pod. Look her up, check her out. Gil, thank you for everything. If you want to see more of us like this, please join our Patreon. We're going to be putting up some polls to see what you guys like. We're also going to be trying to figure out what's going on with us. Wow, they're all dancing like crazy. We are in the Christmas spirit for this year. So we're going to have a lot of updates, things coming out. Follow us on Patreon, follow us on Spotify, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. We love you, and I would say,
We love y'all.
bye.
Bye. Hell yeah.
Yoink. Okay.
Don't
Okay.
forget to turn off the stream, Joey Beth.
That's what I'm looking
Hi,
for right now.
everybody in the stream. Hi.
Goodbye.
After show. After
Oh
show.
my God. Oh my fucking God.
Uh,
And that was great. Kristen,
my-
thank you. Thank you,
Mhm.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm glad these
Ended.
got a cameo.
A what?